your concepts have to be so good that even hearing the concept adds value to the audience or changes their life.
How can we become more charismatic?
I was really been thinking about this over the years and looking at the most charismatic people. And I think they've got two things. And so what you can do is you can actually teach your offer without saying you're selling your offer. One thing that people don't realize is the energy they bring to the first 5 seconds of their video. One thing you must understand is that giving too many steps in your free content actually hamstrings the results of your audience. For me, when I'm designing a webinar, there are 3 pillars that I like to focus on.
How can you instantly make your next video better and show up more powerfully on camera? In this video, you're going to be learning 3 pillars of a video that drives sales, powerful storytelling tips, and how to quickly come up with relevant stories from your own life that will add value to your audience. And then some of the biggest mistakes people make that really hurt their communication on camera, on podcast, on webinars, and that are really hurting the results that they're getting, whether in sales, in views. And so how do you be more persuasive and how do you power up your next video? Well, today on the Think Media podcast, my guest is Colin Boyd, back for his 2nd episode on the show. He's an international speaker, trainer, coach. He has been in the speaking business since 2017, his own speaking business. He's been in the game for over a decade, and now he runs a flagship program called Sell from Stage Academy, helping people really turn their presentations into a money-making machine. And so stick around until the end of the episode because there's going to be a lot of nuggets that you can apply not just to your videos, but also to your overall online business. So Colin, welcome back to the show.
Hey, great to be here, Sean. Looking forward to helping your audience.
Yeah, so I want to go 0 to 100 real quick. And I'm curious, what is just one quick, powerful tip for making our next video better in terms of delivery, whatever you think? Like, what's just something we could apply to make our next video better in terms of our presentation?
Well, I think, you did it right from the start here. One thing that people don't realize is the energy they bring to the first 5 seconds of their video or any sort of presentation. And so when I think about any sort of video production, or if you're doing webinar or things like that, for me, it's about bringing amplified energy to a condensed space. And so what that means is a lot of the time, people don't realize that video or webinars or any sort of online presentation, it actually reduces your energy by about 2 or 3 notches. And so when you come into your video, come in at a 9 or a 10 energy, even energetically feeling it in your body, whether you need to do some star jumps before or things like that, like just get the blood flowing. Because when you're on a stage doing a presentation, there's this natural nervousness or natural energy in the room that you just have to step up into because you're getting on a stage. But in a video or in a studio, it's kind of very different. And so that would be my first tip is like, come into the video hot, like come in with energy, with focus. That first 5 seconds really matters.
So powerful. And I want to get into some tactics for speaking, persuasion, and specifically these 3 pillars that we can include in videos or live streams that are generate sales. But if people are just jumping on the show and just meeting you, what is your background in terms of speaking? And you've got a bunch of powerful frameworks and things we're going to get into. How did you develop all of these? Like, where do they come from in terms of your history, kind of in a nutshell?
For me, my background, I was in corporate originally, went through, university, did some presentations in university and school, went to youth group, spoke a little bit, on a Friday night, to like young kids, and then got into the workforce and really struggled. Like my first job, I flunked so hard. And I remember seeing a few people come in at different times and run workshops. And I remember seeing them and going, that would be so fascinating to run. Like, it looks like just a fascinating thing. And I remember asking my manager at the time, I was like, how much are you paying that person to come in to run the workshop? And they were like, I think it was like $2,000 for like 2 hours. And I'm thinking, I earned that for my whole month at the time, right? And that just got me fascinated about the area of speaking. I wasn't any good at that point. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. And I remember I started my coaching business, and in the first 6 months, I really struggled to get clients. And this was before, online stuff was really big. This was 2009 when I first started my coaching business. And I struggled to get clients. And I remember I had one opportunity, and it was to speak at an event. And no one wanted this speaking event. It was a free event. It was referred to like 5 people. No one could make it. I put up my hand. I said, okay, I'll do it. I'm not a professional speaker at the time. I've got no clue what I'm doing. But I came into that night and presented. And I remember the event organizer, he came to me. He was like, Colin, this is the biggest night we've ever had. Like, we've got about 137 or so people in this room. And I was so freaked out. For me, this is like the worst news of the night, because I'm thinking, great, I'm going to look like an idiot in front of everyone. And I delivered my presentation, made my offer, and then that flowed on to basically 125 of them followed up with me out of the 137 to take up my offer that night. And then I ended up signing a full deck of one-on-one coaching. That was when I was doing one-on-one coaching, and then landed some big corporate gigs after that. And that for me was the first time I realized that speaking was a powerful vehicle. And then that went on to use webinars and live presentations and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, that was before the virtual space was a big space. And so that for me cut my teeth in this world. And then I would probably say 5 years ago, we launched Self from Stage Academy, because I had so many experts and coaches and course creators coming to me going, Colin, because I was actually teaching productivity and human performance at the time. Like, I was a human performance coach. And they were like, that content's great. Like, I love it. But how are you doing this speaking and selling thing? Like, the way you communicate on a stage is what I'm fascinated about. So it was like they wanted to buy something that I wasn't offering. And that really encouraged me to get into this new space, which is just becoming a more persuasive communicator on any sort of stage or platform.
Such an inspiring story. And probably little did you know that you were learning all of these skills that now could be translated into this world where even if we work from home, through the power of doing a webinar, a web class, a video podcast, a YouTube video, a Facebook live stream, we have this opportunity to build these remarkable businesses that impact people and change lives and generate a lot of revenue. And you've got a particular set of skills that can help you. You've really helped myself improve frameworks you've taught me that I've applied have led to viral videos, and have also helped us generate really 6 figures of revenue, multiple 6 figures of revenue tracked just to specific tactics that we've implemented. That's cool. And so for anybody also that wants to just skip straight to one of the resources Colin has, you can check out newstoryformula.com. He's got you can discover your conversion story. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that later because he's a valuable resource, of course, show notes. But let's dive into some of the tactics here. And let's go high level first. Speaking on video and this idea of persuasion. I actually want to start with persuasion. I feel like that word might be kind of mixed. Like some people, what's your definition of persuasion? Why should we be persuasive? And why maybe would some people, I know I need to persuade my kids. It's a skill set every parent needs, but that sometimes maybe people feel that in like a sales environment, like being salesy, these ideas that sometimes they get taken too far. So what's kind of your vantage point of this idea?
Yeah, this is fascinating because I've actually studied quite a lot in this area from the sense of even doing, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which is one of the foundational language patterns and behavioral structures for persuasion. And my experience has been that you can go too far down that path. And your listeners would have seen that online from people, and you just get that vibe of like, man, this just feels so pushy, like so intense. There's like really no value, and all they're doing is trying to like manipulate me into buying something. For me, that's like the enemy. I don't want that experience for any of my listeners whenever they're on a web class or my students. For me, the idea of being influential from a stage, and that's really what I like to focus on, is the idea that you can communicate the value of what you do and almost awaken the dormant desire, or really take the audience's desire that they probably already have, but it hasn't been enriched, awakened to a whole nother level, so that by the end of your video, the end of your presentation, they're not only going, wow, this person was really good, like this is really valuable. They're also going, how do I continue this journey with them? Like, what else could I do? I know for me, I've had a few times where I've watched videos on YouTube and right after them, I've gone and bought their course. Like it was in the show notes and just boom, go and bought their course because they did it the right way. They added great value, but they also were able to create this innate desire that I already had. It aligned with what I wanted already. And I was the right person for that next step. And so I took it. That for me is the goal.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting is one of the most famous books, which also we always recommend resources, is Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Robert, I think Cialdini. And in the very book, he also recommends like these are powerful tools that are so essential that a business owner know, that a communicator know, but these also could be used for good or evil. And I think that especially we were inspired to help purpose-driven content creators, business owners, like really make a difference. And sometimes we neglect tools because maybe they've been used poorly. So we kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater. I see a lot of faith-based people do that. One, I heard this that was very interesting is not that, I mean, the tool is just neutral in terms of persuasion, but I heard even thinking about like the David and Goliath story that ultimately David ended up using, after slaying the giant with a slingshot, this particular tactic, he ended up using the enemy's sword to chop his own head off. Kind of a niche reference, but our communicate, and there's something about having these tools, but also having that pure heart, that good intent. Of course, we might make mistakes, but like these are essentials. It's the way, it's also psychology. So I'd love for you to kind of break that down, then some of the stuff you've learned, because human brains work in a particular way. People make decisions in a particular way. People have certain objections in a particular way. And so even the art of sales, of persuasion, of speaking, coming from an integrous heart with the intent to better the end user, I think a lot of really good people are suffering in their results for the neglect of the learning of the skill set you've developed. So what are some of the things we could learn practically that we could apply to our next video or our next web class, webinar, in regards to persuasion?
Yeah. I mean, I know your audience, and I have a very similar audience from the sense of they're good at what they do. They have the right heart. They have the right intention. And I think exactly what you said, if you come in and you're just all about heart without the strategies, like you don't have the slingshot, and you come in and you're like, hey, I'm a really good guy. I'm a really good gal. I really care about people, which is the basis for having longevity in this industry. But if you don't have the slingshot, then you're not going to take out the giants in your business. And for me, this is a slingshot. And so let's get into some of those strategies. You talked about the 3 pillars. And for me, when I'm designing a webinar, there are 3 pillars that I like to focus on. And we can chat through one individually as we go through. The first pillar for me is the idea of shifting people's perspective. So what most people do when they build a presentation or a video is they ask themselves, what is something that's really useful or helpful or practical that I can share on my video? Now, that's a nice question. It's a great question. The problem is with that question is that you're probably going to go into your tool set of course content and practical things that you've got. You're going to come and teach it. And the issue with that is a lot of the time, all that does is overwhelm the audience because they're actually not ready for it. They're not ready for that level of detail. And the problem with that is it almost like hamstrings their moving forward. So the thing that you have to do first is ask the question, what is wrong with my offer? What is wrong with what I teach? And the reason why I say that is because the first chunk of content, I think, in any highly influential communication piece is addressing resistances or misbeliefs that people have about what you do and what you help people with. I'll give you an example. So one of our signature core programs is called Sell from Stage Academy. Now, there's even an issue with the title of what I do. And the issue with the title is that it teaches selling, right? That's an issue. And the reason why that is because a lot of people have hang-ups on selling. Now, for me, one of the misbeliefs I have to address is that selling is always or always feels icky or pushy. And so a reframe that I'll share usually in the start of a presentation will be that selling, if done the right way, is the doorway to serving your perfect audience on the next level. So it's actually selling becomes serving when you do it the right way. And so that shift, all of a sudden, it almost like takes a handbrake off people's mindset around the idea of selling. And so they feel more comfortable with it. And so if they end up being the right person for the program, then taking the next step is going to be a lot easier for them. And so the idea here is going, what are the resistances, the misbeliefs, the wrong ways of thinking? So for you with YouTube, it's like asking that idea of what's wrong with YouTube? Like, what are the misbeliefs, misconceptions, the wrong ways that people think about YouTube that I need to kind of release the handbrakes of before I can even get into this useful content? So that's the first pillar.
And I think that's so powerful. And I think what really resonates with me in that regard is that sometimes I think there's the thing that people teach. There's the principles you need to get across. There's the actual tactics you need to implement. There's the things that need to be put into practice. But in some cases, if you were to make a video or a webinar and just give, if you will, the tip or the tool, the webinar might have been 3 minutes long. Now, some people might say you're fluffing it up, but what you just also revealed is, I think, a missing piece of 99% of business owners, content creators, speakers, coaches, is if you don't overcome the objections, if you don't overcome wrong beliefs, if you don't actually get the heart and the psychology, the person bought in, but they just have the information and the to-do, they wouldn't get results. Because all of us have we have the information, like it's New Year's resolutions, I should probably eat better and exercise more, but it's actually gonna be much more of a psychology belief system, maybe some different, some bad experiences, some disappointments. So that's just, it's incredibly powerful. You said the first one's to shift their perspective.
Shift their perspective. Do you know what's interesting, Sean? And I know that I've had conversations with you about this, is for me, it was probably about almost 2 years ago, I was really not liking my relationship with alcohol. This is COVID time, everyone's probably having a few more drinks than normal. And I was like, I'm just not feeling great. And so I had this desire to want to stop or reduce my alcohol, but I couldn't do it because I had all these misbeliefs about what alcohol was doing for me. And one of them was that alcohol made me more relaxed. That was a big one for me. I was like, so think about, this is an example of a misbelief, right? And so I started really working through my misbeliefs about alcohol. And one of them was it makes me more relaxed. And then I actually looked at the reality of it, and it actually creates stress within the system. And then the next day I'm twice as stressed. And so it doesn't actually make me more relaxed. And so what was fascinating when I started to shift my misbeliefs, I automatically started to reduce my alcohol. In fact, I didn't have a drop of alcohol for a year and a half. I have an occasional drink now, but it's nothing like it used to be. And it was less about having a desire and more about the misbeliefs that I had. That was the thing that was stopping me. And your audience is the same, is they have these misbeliefs that they have about the area that you can help them with. And you can create as much desire as you want. But if you don't look after those big handbrakes that they've got on, they're not going to move forward. They're putting the accelerator on. They're not going to move forward.
So powerful. Literally that right there was worth listening to the free podcast. But just to think about, because that's also a whole nother stream of content that listeners can go down. They maybe have never asked that question before. Man, what are my audience's misbeliefs? What are the handbrakes that are holding them back? And then, of course, in the line of work that we do, especially for education side of YouTube, we're teaching something, solving problems, helping people build skills. Where ultimately our end goal, I hope, is to get results for the end user, is to truly get transformation, not to just impart information.
100%.
If it was just about imparting information, then someone could say, hey, Colin, just stop drinking. You go, okay, or just slow it down. You're like, well, yeah, that's the fact, but.
Or here are the steps. here are the steps to stop drinking. Like step 1, you like remove the alcohol. Step 2, you like don't buy it. And step 3, it's like, yeah, that's cool. Like you can give all those steps, but I've still got these like messed up beliefs that I'm just, no matter what, I'm going to end up going and buying more alcohol.
Man, it's so good. Okay, well, these are the 3 pillars. So the first one is it shifts perspective. What's number 2?
And by the way, the bigger context of this is what I call infusion selling. So the problem that most people have is they speak and teach for a bunch of their training, their video, and then they sell at the end. And it's like this weird energetic shift, and their coolness factor goes from like super cool to like super uncool. And so when you do this right, using these 3 pillars and some of the other strategies we use, what happens is the whole thing infuses together. And that's why I call it infusion selling. You end up speaking and selling at the same time. And one of the strategies is just that. It's shifting their beliefs. A second strategy, second pillar, is creating desire. So creating desire is really important, but it comes after reducing resistances. And so then you actually ramp up the desire. Now, there's a really specific way of doing that. One thing you must understand is that getting or giving too many steps in your free content actually hamstrings the results of your audience. Now, people have like issues with this. They'll say, oh, so Colin, are you saying that, it's just all fluff? It's like nothing's helpful. No, I'm not saying that at all. One idea is that your concepts have to be so good, the concept itself, that even hearing the concept adds value to the audience or changes their life.
This episode is brought to you by StreamYard. StreamYard is our go-to platform here at Think Media for live streaming to Facebook and YouTube and for recording our video podcast. It has an incredibly easy to use interface for built-in branding, transitions, text lower thirds, and seamlessly bringing on guests. And they just added an awesome new feature called local recording. This allows you to take the quality to another level by separating out your audio and video from your guests, giving you more control over your content for later use. This feature is perfect for video and podcast creators. And so to get a special deal on StreamYard right now and to see all the features that are included, just go to streamwiththink.com. That is streamwiththink.com.
I know for me, there's been a few speeches that I've listened to in my life. You even think about, Martin Luther King's speech, I Have a Dream. He didn't give practical steps. It was a concept. It was an inspirational idea. That one presentation wasn't a step-by-step system for shifting society's beliefs in the US and in the world. That was a conceptual presentation. And so I want people to stop thinking that steps are the only thing of value. You give really powerful concepts, that is incredibly valuable in itself. And so the second pillar is designing a few really powerful concepts that when the hearer hears it, they're like, that's a really powerful idea. And so one of the ideas that I teach is this idea of not telling a signature story, but telling a conversion story. And so that's one of the core pillars of what I teach. And right, so this idea of a conversion story, even just the concept itself is valuable, because people start going, well, I've been telling the wrong story for most of my content career. I've been telling the whole journey of my career or random stories about how I got into what I do. And I'm not telling the one story that will authentically lead your audience towards wanting to work with you. That's a conversion story. And so when I teach that concept alone, that's valuable.
Yeah, so powerful because it shines light on, I finally started doing web classes and webinars. They're not converting at all. I read a book on storytelling or watched a TED Talk and heard I should start telling stories. So I started telling stories, but they actually don't seem like they're helping. They're not, I don't know what I have wrong. So it's kind of like That's like a free, highly valuable diagnostic. Like the plumber, the electrician will come by and say, oh, we'll do a free diagnostic. And it's so valuable because you just shined a light on this is what's wrong and this is what's wrong. And then at that moment, you could also be like, all right, appreciate it. Cause take it easy. I'll try to fix it myself, electrocute yourself. Or the smart move, you could always do it yourself, or you find somebody that has already been there, done that, and can do the heavy lifting and then help you craft and really design into that one aspect of what you teach, a conversion story and not just your origin story. I want to circle back to conversion stories later, but what are we increasing desire for?
That's a good concept. Good question. So what you want to do is you want to look at your offer, right? Because you want to increase in desire for your offer specifically. And so whatever you sell, you want to go to it and go, what are the most desirable parts of what I teach? And so storytelling is one of the most desirable parts of what I teach, right? There's a few of them, but that's for me, it's, one of the top three. It's the rock star ideas. And so I think it's important to go to your offer and go, what are the most valuable, most desired parts of what I teach within my whole offer? Maybe you've got 5 core things you teach within your offer. What's the most desirable? And I would teach a little bit of that. And so what that's going to do, it's going to awake a desire within your audience to go, wow, that's really interesting. I love learning about this. But you're going to teach in a way where you don't get too much into the steps. Now, one of the ways that you can teach is through frameworks. And I love teaching through frameworks because once again, it's incredibly valuable, but it doesn't give too many steps. It teaches a conceptual idea, conceptual framework for people to have clarity on the idea, but not implement the idea. And once again, if you were to go through the steps, people wouldn't do it anyway, because in the free content, they aren't committed enough to implement. They want to be inspired. They really do. They want to be encouraged, all that sort of stuff. But if you really want to see a transformation in your life, I know for me, as much as working out, at home or, doing my own exercise, is somewhat consistent. The thing that really keeps me fit is having a personal trainer or having group classes that I'm paying for and going to. That's the thing that keeps me accountable. It's not just waking up going, you know what, I'm going to train today. Now, that can be developed over time, but it usually starts by some level of commitment. And for me, spending money is the cleanest currency of commitment that one can have. And the reason why I say that is it's so measurable. And so when I know for me, if I had, let's say I had, this piece of paper, and I said, this piece of paper, if you follow it step by step, it will generate you more than $100,000 on YouTube in the next 12 months. Step by step, it guarantees going to generate you more than $100,000. You can have it for free. Now, if I gave it away for free, people would they'll download it. They'll be, oh, that's awesome. They'd put it in their electrical files, right? It'd sit in their Dropbox. They'd probably scan through it once and never use it. But if I said this piece of paper, you follow it step by step, you will generate $100,000 guaranteed if you follow it on YouTube next year. It's $5,000 for this piece of paper, $5,000. If you paid $5,000 for that piece of paper, you're framing that thing. Like that thing's going up next to your computer, and every day you're probably looking at it going, okay, how am I going on step 1? How am I going on step 2? Like the level of commitment just goes to a whole nother level. And so the reason why I'm sharing this is because once again, if you share too many steps in your trainings, too many specific processes, people aren't ready for it. And so you want to teach in a way that creates more a commitment to the thing as opposed to specific processes within the thing.
It's so powerful. I think that there's actually a concept called skin in the game theory. And skin in the game refers to owners, executives, and principals having a significant stake in the shares of the company that they manage. So even as a side quest on like leadership, it's not helpful to not structure things in such a way that the key players, they need some risk. They need some skin in the game. The phrase skin in the game means to have incurred risk, monetary or otherwise, being involved in the achieving of a goal. There's no skin in the game dabbling and watching a free video on YouTube. There's no skin in the game watching 7 minutes of a podcast and then skipping to something else and getting distracted by just dancing TikTok videos. It's so powerful that you talk about that. There's so many layers of like science-backed kind of buy-in that happens that really backs up the idea that when we pay attention.
And I will say with that, Sean, I still think free content's really important as part of the process, because most of the time you're not going to pay money until you've built trust and resonance with the creator. And so the free content is really, really powerful, really valuable, but it's a valuable part of the first stage of someone's journey. And so what I've noticed, and I see this over and over again, I can hand on heart say this, it is the programs that I have paid to be in is the reason why we run a global multi-7-figure business. It's the programs. It's not the free content, the random things that I've listened to or done. It's the things that I've paid to be in. It's the reason why we are where we are. But that journey started with free content. That journey for all of them, I've had times where I've spent, 50 grand with someone, but I listened to their podcast for about 3 or 4 months. And I was like, I really like them. I'd love to be a part of their program. I think they could help me. Boom, 50 G's. I'll join their program. And it's like, but that journey started with the free content. So I don't want people to like think that, free content's like useless. It's not, it's important. It's an important part of it, but you got to do it the right way.
Very strong. Yeah. And that brought awareness, top of funnel awareness, and brought results. It's popularized concepts, RIA, results in advance. And that is that when your free content applied moves the needle, you start saying this stuff really works. But to really take it all the way, and to your point, my experience has been exact same. Quantum leaps have been others on the other side of actually skin in the game, commitment, investing. And that's where I've got the greatest returns. So number one, it shifts perspective. If we're talking about these 3 pillars of a presentation, so you can put this in a video, in a live stream, in a webinar, that's actually going to convert, and convert would mean generate sales. But by the end of it, it doesn't just fall flat. It actually converts. Number one, it shifts perspective. Number 2, it increases desire. And then what's number 3?
Number 3 is it reveals your vehicle. So what I mean by that is everyone should have their own unique vehicle or methodology for getting a result. And so that could be a 3-step process. That could be a 5-step process. I probably wouldn't recommend more than 5 or 6 steps at the most. But one of the important things is when you're presenting, you essentially teach your offer before you make your offer. And so when you're teaching, when you're in the teaching part of it, the audience will have a lot less resistance to listening to it and taking it on board. And so what you can do is you can actually teach your offer without saying you're selling your offer. And so what I mean by that is you can teach the steps. And for us, there are specific steps that you go through to build a profitable webinar or stage business. And so I will teach those steps, which once again is valuable to understand, because then you have clarity about, okay, this is the journey that if I want to create that I can go on. For you, you've got very specific steps in building a highly profitable, influential YouTube channel. And so you can teach those steps, but once again, you don't want to go into this too much detail, because the goal is to get clarity. Confused buyers don't buy. And so buyers get confused when they get too much overwhelm, too much detail. And so the third part of infusion selling is teaching the vehicle or revealing the vehicle, so that when you go to your offer, your audience will see your offer. In fact, you don't have to spend too much time in the selling, because when you show them the offer, it's going to mirror almost exactly what you've been teaching the whole time, but it's not going to feel like you've been selling to them the whole time, because you do it in a way where it reduces resistances, it's helpful, it creates desire, and it also shows them a really clear path, and then it reveals then it actually moves into the offer. And so for me, they're the 3 pillars of when I'm building That's my sell from stage formula structure. When I'm building a presentation, they're the 3 pillars that I'm always getting my students to focus on.
So powerful. One of the takeaways for me there is you say it reveals a unique vehicle, and the listener might be like, wait, I don't have a unique vehicle. What does that mean? I think another way I've heard it said that's maybe adjacent is kind of like having a proprietary process. Our students would know we have our own. It's actually, I feel bad now because it's the 7R framework. You gave me max 6. You said max 6 steps. And now our 7th R is repeat because you're going to do it again more intelligently. But I added an 8th R of repurpose because now we're living in a world where you should chop up your videos. You can maybe repurpose them on other platforms or even repost them, create it once, distribute forever. But it's 7, Colin. I mean, I don't know what to do.
Well, you're brilliant, mate. So you can have 7. I'll give you 7. Most people I wouldn't give 7. So, but I'll give you permission.
I appreciate that. But the side quest I want to kind of encourage people to be thinking about, again, if you're in the business of transformation, like you're teaching something, you're helping people achieve a result. So speakers and authors and coaches and course creators, if you haven't heard this concept yet, you got to figure out your unique vehicle. I think about this in terms of fitness, maybe illustrates. If anybody remembers P90X, they introduced their unique vehicle was muscle confusion. It was kind of like this different vehicle. You remember that?
Dude, I bought it.
It was horrible too. Remember Yoga X?
I confused my muscles so much.
That yoga session was so brutal. They were like, this isn't yoga. This is high level. I'm going to be honest. I can't remember. Somebody gave me bootleg DVDs of P90X. They gave me a stack of bootlegs. It's like, hey, bro, you want P90X? I was like, I don't know if this doesn't really align with my values, but
It's so true. I used it for about 7 days.
It's too hard.
I was so sore.
That's so funny because it speaks to different vehicles. CrossFit is a vehicle. P90X was a vehicle. I think about my friend Shalene Johnson who did PIO. That's a different vehicle. And then even within business, there's different frameworks. There's like the SWOT analysis. There's, all kinds of different, but one of the best ways to build a personal brand and a really strong coaching business and so on and so forth is of course to really hone in your unique vehicle, your proprietary process, your framework, your signature framework. And Colin's one of the best people to follow for that. Not just, then you have your main framework, but then you have other things that can illustrate that. Like one of the ones you taught me was tension frameworks, which ended up becoming my YouTube domination framework. And to say all of that, number one, I'll link to that video in the show notes of when I taught that. Because again, I basically just followed Colin step by step. And what's so wild was, I think I taught it in 2 different places. I taught it at Growth Video Live. It's still going to be being brought back in the future, and I continue to hone it. But it was so powerful, and yet it was just plug and play when I followed the formulas that you've created. So anyways, those are some 3 powerful tips. I do want to get into a little bit of stuff on how to be more charismatic, maybe a few other mistakes, and then we can land the plane, perhaps touch on storytelling in just the next few minutes. But if you are loving this, I do recommend check out newstoryformula.com. That's a link that'll take you to a really special, super affordable offer that Colin has. And it's all about the conversion story formula. So after 10 years of trial and error, Colin, you designed this. Explain exactly what this is. And then if you want to check this out, it's in the show notes or it's at newstoryformula.com. But Colin, what is this offer?
Well, I think that this will change people's lives, and it's so simple, it's so easy, but it's really profound. And it's everyone's ability to work out what is the right story I need to be telling on my content. And what's powerful about this is once you discover the right story and you put it in the right structure, you're honestly, the bad news is you're going to be telling that same story for the next 5 to 10 years over and over again. Now, the good part of that is that story is going to generate a lot of money for you because it's what I call a conversion story. And the reason why this is so powerful is because not only does it tell your story, but it tells your story in a way that the audience will actually put themselves in your story. So they not only hear your story, they actually hear their story. And when you tell it the right way, what happens is they're going to authentically and intuitively start to go, wow, I would love to like continue working with this person or get some more resources from them. So that's what they'll do. That's what they'll find there, the conversion story, formula, structure. And what's cool is, this is my promise, 48 hours. That within 48 hours, it's a short training. It's not like one of those 48 hour, 40, it's not 59 hours of training. It's a short training. Within 48 hours, my goal is for you to tell your conversion story, whether it's on a Facebook Live or on any sort of platform, or at least have it built to tell. So that's my goal. 48 hours, you're going to have it ready and built.
And I would just say this, I'd say for some listening, you might be earlier on in your journey. This might not be the next right step for you, but you want to add to your tool set. Definitely check it out, newstoryformula.com. But if you already have something for sale, if you're already doing webinars of any kind, if you're already doing live streams, if you have any kind of offer, or if you're an affiliate at all, and there's something you're going deep as an affiliate, this is really a no-brainer. Of course, if you are just meeting Colin, I can really just, we've been friends now for years. And I'll also link up episode 1 with him, which was incredibly powerful. So someone definitely to get to know, who just getting to see behind the scenes of his family, his values, but his stuff works super sharp. And if you have something to sell, this is really a no-brainer, because you can apply it instantly to start increasing sales, increasing conversions. Again, the URL is newstoryformula.com, and you can always check that out in the show notes down below. I was watching your reels, and you talked about how to be more charismatic. I want you to break that down, because I think about what's cool about YouTube especially is it really has proven to us that people from all different backgrounds, ethnicities, ages, and even personality styles. Not everyone's like over the top and really hype and crazy. And, not everyone's on that Gen Z energy. One of the largest rising demos of creators is Gen X. One of the largest rising demos of people consuming content and creating is also baby boomers and baby boomers watching YouTube. YouTube is such a massive global platform. And so, of course, you don't have to become something you're not. But if we added a little more charisma, right, to our next video and became more of who we are, then our results are going to improve. And so how can we become more charismatic, Colin?
Well, let's have a look at what charisma is, because charisma is, if I think about charisma, it comes back to a feeling. It's like a resonance that you feel with someone where you want to draw closer to them or you're attracted to them. And I'm not talking about like a physical attraction. It's like it could be partly that, but it's this sense of you want to be closer to them, right? And if you're a content creator, that is one of the goals. One of the goals of your content is for your audience to want to be closer to you. And when they want that, then they're going to want to work with you. They're going to want to buy your programs and all that sort of stuff. And so charisma is this intuitive attraction that people have towards you. So for me, I was really been thinking about this over the years and looking at the most charismatic people. And I think they've got two things. They've been able to find the right balance between presenting an idea and presenting a part of themselves that is triumphant, that is invincible, it's like the Superman, right? They've got amazing results. They've got this sense of certainty. They've got this, they know what they're talking about. They've got the confidence. But also they have the humility. They have the challenges. They have the humanness of who they are. And it answers these two core questions, which is the first question that people ask is, are you like me? And when someone gets to know someone and they're starting, watching you on a video, they're asking the question, and a lot of time it's unconscious. It's this question of, are you like me? Or in some way, do you understand me? Like, can I find some similarities? And it's not necessarily like cultural similarities. One of the biggest similarities is finding a sense of, do you have similar values? Do you Have you had challenges and difficulties like me? Have you had internal struggles like me? That's like one of the first questions that people unconsciously ask. And the second question they'll ask is, can you lead me? In other words, have you achieved something that I could aspire to? And these two dissonances, these two differences where you're invincible and vulnerable, it's the intersection of those two that creates charisma. And so what happens is when people get this out of balance, then you either become a really nice guy or a douchebag, right? And so if you're all about invincibility and you show no vulnerability, you become egotistical. You come off like a bit of a douche, right? Or if you're all the nice guy, you're all the nice girl, you know, it's all about just like the challenges you had in your journey, you kind of become drama on stage. Life's a bit of a mess and people won't buy things from you. And so for me, it's every person has to work out which side of the spectrum they're sitting on. Are they more on the invincibility or are they more on the vulnerability? Like, where do they naturally sit? I would say for me, I'm more on the vulnerability side. So I've had to work on my invincibility strengths. I've had to work on status, and status could be brands I've represented, clients I've had, things I've achieved. But some of you might be more on the invincibility status. Like maybe you're a very driven individual, like highly driven, usually like a high D or like highly driven individual, and showing vulnerability is difficult for you. But what's fascinating is if you bring in some more vulnerability, you're going to become a more attractive individual.
Man, this is so powerful. And I think this is probably going to trigger all of us a little bit. I probably lean a little bit more towards you. I think also, like as a Christian, you know, as Christians, we really struggle with this, with like humility is kind of put on this pedestal. Greatness is kind of misinterpreted, even biblically, because people say like, oh, we shouldn't, you don't brag, don't be flashy, don't show off. And of course, pride becomes the fault. Like, so it all gets wrapped together. But so fascinating to me was, you know, the disciples were sitting next to Jesus, like, yo, who can sit on your right, on your left? Like, can we get those spots? And he goes, hey, if any of you desires to be great, what I love about that is it's like, he didn't say, no, you guys shouldn't aspire to greatness. Don't desire to sit here or here. He said, if any of you desires to be great, become a servant. And that's going to be your pathway to greatness. And so it wasn't actually putting greatness down. It was giving us a path to greatness. So anyways, we see this, that maybe a lot of kind of heart-centered people, which would probably be the majority of this podcast, a little more, and I'm sure there's plenty of that would be more invincibility, sometimes shies away from certain things. Like, what if somebody misinterprets my actions? And like, I like that you mentioned status. You know, we do judge books by their cover. And so I'm definitely, and so are you, I wouldn't see on your social media, probably, maybe we'll see it, but I wouldn't see you probably flex up in Newport Beach in a Ferrari and like pop out and like flex off some brands or something and get a video crew to really show you, on the one hand, because also there's also about being authentic, and that's not even really your vibe. But on the flip side, if someone's going to really trust you to lead them somewhere, how can you lead, you know, somebody somewhere where you haven't been? And I'll never forget, I got a comment from somebody where in our Vegas house, I had shot a video and I was trying to encourage people that I could help them achieve some more success on YouTube. And the comment was like, how is somebody in your little 1-bedroom apartment? This was the comment. And now I'm triggered because I'm like, this is a 2,500 square foot house. Like, I'm just, you don't know, this isn't an apartment. But actually kind of what I realized was, on the one hand, we could go to the extreme. You gotta put trolls, if you will, even if it is, you know, negativity, you gotta put it in its place, because you're always gonna be misinterpreted. You cannot please everybody. The fear of man is a trap. Like, but on the flip side, I started realizing, oh, what impression am I giving? Am I actually, is there any social posts? And this would be what I would encourage some people. Like, is there any social post where somebody could actually legitimately verify that you're successful? I mean, and maybe it's a gold play button, maybe it's something else. And it's not becoming something you're not. But I think some of us are too afraid because maybe flashy people have taken it to an extreme. People that don't know you need some type of evidence. And I love that you say that. So even these days, some people in our brand, I saw another comment recently where somebody was like, sure, a lot of videos about millionaires because we were using really powerful titles or just accurate titles, millionaire reveals. And this is just better marketing, but I had to be willing to actually take a little smoke because the guests that I had on, I figured our people wouldn't probably know them as well. So how would they know who the guest is? So it's millionaire reveals. In fact, even the very title of this video, I was thinking, a lot of people don't know Colin Boyd yet. I was thinking about titling it like Pro Speaking Coach Reveals. So I was just trying, what is the best rapper? But as soon as you throw out millionaire in front of a little bit more, if humility, is to the extreme, quote unquote, an interpretation of humility. Oh, I mean, don't flex. We're also trying to just be accurate, relax. But
totally.
Bottom line.
Well, when it's accurate, then that's fine.
And I actually giving me that fact lets me know that at least I'm learning from someone who's been there. What's the alternative? Way too many fakes on the internet, flexing like they are a millionaire, have generated $1 million, and actually are lying. So sometimes, anyways, kind of a side quest, but it
reminds me of those Instagram guys or girls that message you and they're like, hey, we can promote you. And they've got like 1.2 million followers and about 19 views on their reels.
They bought a bunch of fake followers. Yeah, it's not real. So of course, authenticity is at the center of real charisma, but the takeaway being huge. Like I think it's the humility and the credibility. And so even being vocal, again, sometimes I think we're afraid of sharing our results. If you never share your results, how can I know that you'll get me results? Some people get nervous about talking about money. If you've never actually made money, though, how can I know that you've made? And so it's sometimes the influence of our culture, our upbringing, our church. And I don't mean the good aspects of actual biblical principles. I just mean kind of like tradition, certain mindsets can really kind of put us in a box. So you're saying it's this balance and you probably lean to one side. If you happen to be watching the YouTube version, I'm curious, are you more humility, more vulnerability, a little less on that credibility, invincibility side? Or are you more on the invincibility side? And again, I think about a personal trainer, ripped, 0% body fat. Hey, bro, we can get you cut up and so on and so forth. Okay. And no, you just got to do it, man. You just got to suck it up and do it. I mean, this is what I did and this is how disciplined I am. And of course, that's the person I want to follow because of their credibility. They got the results and the invincibility. But if they can't connect with me, if there's no empathy there that connects with me, that's not the coach I want to hire. I want the person with the results, but I want the person, because I am asking, can you lead me? But I'm also asking, okay, yeah, but bro, I'm 40. I got man boobs at this exact second, bro. And I got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, man. Do you understand me? It seems like you're not like me at all because all I know is you're perfectly disciplined, perfectly fit, and you don't even have kids. And so you're pushing stuff on me, whatever. There's a dissonance. I don't want to hire you. This is so powerful, Colin. It's a balance of both credibility and humility, invincibility and vulnerability. Let us know how that's resonating if you're on the YouTube version where you can comment. But anything else on that one? It's really powerful. And in doing so, our charisma goes up.
I think getting the first step is just getting awareness of that. And this affects everything especially your online brand, right? From the videos you're posting, even, how your videos look, like the quality of your video lens and your background and all that sort of stuff leans into your credibility. So if you want to, there's so many elements that you can add to your credibility without even having a massive flex, right? It's just that it's those fine nuances where you turn up like a pro. And I think if you do the real work, like yourself, you started from the ground, man. You were working for church, working on this minimum wage, doing the videos, doing the grind, and you've done the work so that when you so-called flex, there's actually real muscle there as opposed to a blow up thing, right? And so it's not roids. It's not just going to go away. You've actually built the muscle memory there. For me, I've done tens of thousands of presentations and hours on stages. And so when I teach my stuff, it's not a flex. It's just muscle memory. I've done it for so long and helped so many people that it has an authenticity and a depth to it. And so you can't fake that. I think people feel that as well. Like you can't fake that. And so when you're all about the flex, then people sense it when it's hollow. Eventually they'll sense the hollowness and you won't be in the game long-term anyway. And so you can't skip the work. You have to do the work. But when you get the achievement, I'd encourage you to highlight it. Like when you get that test, for me, every testimonial I get, I take a screenshot of it and I'll share it or I'll encourage people with it. And so for me, it's not just about like, it's not flexing. It's actually going, hey, these are real people getting real results. How cool is that? And it also shows that I know what I'm talking about. So it does a bit of both, but it's real stuff. It's not makeup stuff.
So powerful. Well, Colin, we definitely have to have you back in the future. We're coming up to the top of the hour. I do want to give you a chance to shout out some of the stuff you're working on where people can continue to follow you. And again, newstoryformula.com, brand new offer that Colin has put together from a proven, the conversion story formula. Again, if you're an expert, a coach, a course creator, and you want to use the right story to really increase sales on webinars, presentations, podcast interviews, things like that, then check the link out in the show notes or go to newstoryformula.com. Colin, appreciate you so much and just really want to acknowledge you. Shout out your stuff in a second, but I want to acknowledge you for just getting to know you over the years and getting to see you on stage and off stage, getting to see your values for family, your faith, getting to see your humility in practice, and then getting to see your calm confidence in terms of just how you execute at a mastery level with what you've learned. Think Media is better because of your influence on our company. And so I'm so grateful for you and the difference you're making. And I really believe too that 2024 is going to be your best year yet, and that the impact that God's called you to have on the earth is really significant and it's just getting started. And so I'm so grateful to call you a friend. But if people want to connect with you on social, where can they follow you?
Yeah, Instagram, I'm very active on Instagram. So at Colin Boyd, ColinBoyd. I've got my own podcast. So if you want to listen to a few more podcasts from me, it's just the Expert Edge podcast. You can go and check that out. And love to resonate, connect with you. But I think, the first place to start with, if you're serious about getting better at communicating your ideas and sharing your story, is newstoryformula.com. I think that's a great place to start. So it's a pleasure being on the podcast, Sean.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, podcast. Like, share it out. Comment if you're on YouTube, rate and review if you're on audio. Appreciate you, and we'll connect in the next one.